This is Mr. Plátano Man 1989, and I'm going to talk about an interesting article that I read today. In the article, you can see it on the left of this video, on the description if you want to read. Now, what this letter basically said was that indeed they do have like some policies and punishments and their own little system of what to do with wrestlers that get caught or test positive for steroids. They feel that, well, he feels that it's not really taken as serious, as big as, it's a much bigger problem than these organizations are acting like it is. Now, my thing is that it's one thing if you get caught doing marijuana and drugs like that. It shouldn't be tolerated, but it's not as bad if you get caught doing steroid. I mean, you're probably thinking that I'm talking like out my ass and I'm a dumbass, that drugs are worse than steroids, but I disagree. I mean, it's not really like as harmful as the long-term effects of taking a heavy dosage of steroids. Now, maybe if somebody juices up once or twice, it's not as serious as someone that is really addicted to it and continues to abuse it, but I just don't see them on the same level. So, for example, when Jeff Hardy tested positive earlier this year for whatever he tested, earlier last year, sorry, for whatever he tested positive for, I don't believe it was steroids. Maybe it came out, somebody said in the comments of somebody knows what it actually was, but it was something else. Now, the thing with steroids, almost everybody used to take steroids back in the day. Now, today, although it has faded out a little bit, because seriously, it's still in there. Last year, TNA, according to this article, TNA was doing their first steroid test, and 15 wrestlers came out positive. Now, out of 60, 15, in my opinion, is not bad at all. Mind you, it was their first steroid test ever, drug test ever. So I actually expected a lot more, considering it's the first, and then numbers would improve. But 15, in my opinion, that's not bad at all. It's really not for the first test. Now, obviously, none of those 15 people were actually punished. I don't know if they were buried or something, but they definitely were not punished. Now, if I had to think off the top of my head, last year, January, who wrestled for TNA and which ones could have possibly tested positive for steroids? Maybe Scott Steiner. Petey Williams was gaining a lot of muscle mass. I'm not saying he did, I'm just saying maybe. Maybe Kip James, trying to keep his body, hold on to his figure. Probably Tomko. I mean, Tomko, I've heard he looks like shit now. And, that's when he looked real fit. So who knows? Maybe that's why his singles push got buried. I don't know. But my point being that nobody was suspended. Now, I don't know if TNA plans to change what they're doing. Maybe they didn't take nothing seriously because it was the first test. But if this continues, obviously it could be a big issue. Now, if they start having these strict policies against it, it could affect potential storylines, feuds, championship matches, pay-per-views, all of that stuff. And that's kind of the big reason why WWE wouldn't punish people that tested positive back in the past. According to this article, just 2 years ago, Randy Orton was tested positive right before a SummerSlam match with Hulk Hogan. But they can't, take out Randy Orton out that match. That match was heavily hyped as one of the biggest matches on the card. It's Hulk Hogan and all that stuff. So they let him perform even after he tested positive. So what they would do is you can't perform in house shows. You could only perform on pay-per-views and TV shows. So they wasn't really taking the necessary steps to prevent the abuse of steroids. Now, obviously, June 2007, Chris Benoit, we all know what he did. Now, in his, in the autopsy, it revealed that his testosterone level was 10 times what it should have been. So obviously, he didn't just juice up once or twice, multiple times. According to this article, he was tested 4 times for steroids, and 4 times he came back positive. Now, obviously, they didn't do anything about it, and Vince McMahon has learned from these mistakes. But my fear, being that Vince McMahon has taken Star Wars in the past, and he really, really, really cares about his business, my fear is that if one of the main eventers gets tested positive for steroids, won't be punished, and Vince McMahon would, keep it on like as low profile as possible and not punish that person. Now, I know you're thinking that's not true because they punished Jeff Hardy last year and he missed WrestleMania and all that stuff. But the fact is that he lost his belt to Chris Jericho, right, in the Continental Championship. What if they found out that he tested positive, and then they booked this so that he loses the belt right before the pay-per-view, so that he loses the belt in a clean way instead of them having to announce that he tested positive and this and this and that, and they're gonna have to drop the belt and make it vacant. They had him drop it to Chris Jericho, and then they revealed that he's gonna be suspended and all this stuff. So, I mean, isn't the policy supposed to be that once you get tested positive, that's it? You're off the roster, depending on whether it's your first strike or second or third. You're off the roster, suspended or fired. Now, if they're going to make the exception for title holders or people that are in important matches just so that they can have that match and then suspend them, it scares me, because what if right now Jeff Hardy tests positive for something, and then Vince McMahon's in a position where he doesn't want to hear everybody talking about how he never should have put the title on Jeff Hardy? What if he just ignores the fact that Jeff Hardy tested positive for steroid just so he could hold that belt a little bit longer? And what if after he drops the belt, he still doesn't suspend him? What if that's his way of burning him? Because, wait, look, I said suspension. This is his third strike. That would mean that he would be fired. Now, obviously, Vince McMahon does not want to do that. Maybe he'll do it in the position. I mean, obviously, his views on Star Wars have changed since the whole Chris Benoit situation. But obviously, Jeff Hardy is a big, big draw, and he is so over. With Vince McMahon, who really, 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 really passionately cares for business and profits and all that stuff, would he really, really, really release Jeff Hardy just like that after he's getting the freaking push of his life? Would he want to look like a jackass, like a dumbass that trusted him to give him the title? I think that he will, let Jeff Hardy slide if he gets caught with something. And then that could apply to John Cena or other big main eventers. And then there is no policy at all. If it's being ignored for certain people in the main event, then what is that going to do? Seriously, I mean, think about it. If every single person got tested positive for steroids, except a couple of people, who's going to headline WrestleMania? Festus and, I don't know, Carlito? Well, not Carlito, actually, like Carlito. Jimmy Wang Yang, whatever his name is. Are they going to headline WrestleMania? Vince will never do that. So he'll keep his mouth shut a little bit until he works something out and books something. And then there is no policy at all. Now, before this video ends, TNA, when they get their policy together and all their little rules, I hope people take it serious. I think that there should be some kind of, outside organization that should come in and test the performers and the wrestlers and stuff like that, so that it's unbiased, so that it's truly, truly honest and legit. I mean, I just read that TNA's policy is to randomly test a certain amount of wrestlers. Now, how do they decide who those wrestlers are? What? Whoever's the most brolic, whoever's the most in fit? They came up to me and said that I'm one of 3 people that's going to be tested for steroids, and I knew I was innocent. I would feel kind of offended knowing that that guy doing steroids and they picked me and they ignored him because he's in the main event. If they're going to randomly test people, they should randomly have test dates, but test every single wrestler so that it's fair. Also, I think this year we're going to see some kind of effect of this letter, because obviously it's out to the Officer of National Drug Control and all this stuff, and letter, it sounds pretty convincing to me. that it should be taken seriously if I was looking at it from an outside view. So it's only the beginning of the year. I expect this to have some kind of effect in wrestling this year, whether it's people getting suspended, pushes being changed or delayed, or titles being dropped. Hey, we're gonna find out. Mr. Platinum Man 1989 out.